One of the, you know, tragic things that have happened since the war started between the United States and Iran, which was the bombing of the school, primary school in
Yeah.
Iran, which was the outcome was 168 schoolgirls being killed in that attack. Donald Trump said that it wasn't the United States first. He was asking, and we had Pete Hegseth saying that we are just evaluating, we are assessing what was that. Then it came out that the evidence came out showing that it was a Tomahawk missile hitting the building, not just once, various times. And then Donald Trump said it could be a Tomahawk, but there were plenty of Tomahawk missiles out there. Iranians may use one of them to attack. How this guy, you have to be I don't know how to describe it, a pathological liar to go that far. Because you have to understand what is the responsibility. You cannot lie and get away with that. What is your understanding of what has happened and the way that Donald Trump is trying to just lie about it?
Actually, Nima, I think the world is looking at, increasingly becoming aware, at least inchoately, that they're looking at two of the most accomplished, in the very general sense of that word, accomplished liars on the face of the earth, Bibi Netanyahu and Donald Trump. Netanyahu is a sophisticated liar. He's a liar who usually has enough material in his lie to make it sound convincing and even to give some people research difficulties in checking up on him. But he is nonetheless a prevaricator, a deceit, and a liar. Donald Trump is none of those things. He's just a liar. He doesn't have any mellifluous voice. He doesn't have any synergy to his lies. He doesn't have any connection to his lies in many cases. He pulls them from whole cloth. In a good GI term, he pulls them out of his ass. That's where Donald Trump gets his words, from moment to moment, from event to event. So he's not a polished liar like Netanyahu is. But together they make, I think it's fair to say, the two greatest lying leaders on the face of the earth. And this is only one example. There are just thousands of them lying out there. And one of the things that I fault our mainstream media for, though they do point out the lies periodically, they even assemble them sometimes in forward sections of their newspapers or their video casts. And they emphasize that he's lying, and they detail the lies, and Saturday Night Live and a number of other comedy shows make fun of them. Jon Stewart makes fun of them, but nobody does anything about them. No one in that somnolent body of the people's representatives, known as the United States Congress, has got the courage, other than a few individuals, and they know as individuals they have no power, to do anything about it. And yet, the greatest power, as Trump is wont to say, on the face of the earth is constantly lying to his own people and the rest of the world. So don't ask me to explain it.
Yeah. Larry, before, I talked today with Professor Ted Postal. He was mentioning the capabilities on both sides, the air defense system, missiles. And he said we somehow underestimated the Iranian missile system and the precision they have with their missiles. And on the other hand, it's something that the Trump administration somehow exaggerated or overestimated the capabilities to go against the missiles coming to Israel. And he said, so far from what we've learned from open source,
Right.
media, and we've learned that most of these radars have been destroyed, and that's why Israel, the early warning system, is not working anymore. And missiles are getting and hitting the targets without suffering from any, difficulties. In what is your understanding when you see Pete Hegseth today came out saying, we are winning, we are on the verge of victory, and everything is happening? What is happening? Because you have to, what is in their mind by, totally distorting the reality?
Well, Pete Hegseth, I don't know this is for a fact that this is valid or true, has joined the ranks of Bibi Netanyahu and Donald Trump. But in his case, I don't know if it's because he's being mis or malinformed by ranks below him. He's being persuaded to the lies he's telling, if he knows they're lies, by the president himself or some of his lackeys. I just don't know what Pete Hegseth's motivation is. I can give you some facts that I've heard that I trust are probably at least halfway valid, coming from people who will still talk to me in the Pentagon. Hegseth has a problem with alcohol. So he resorts into that problem, if you will, from time to time. And like Lindsey Graham, whom I think increasingly resorts to it all the time. I've not seen Lindsey lately, and I try to watch him. Not only is he with a despite that's unbelievable, and so I want to watch this guy who is probably the greatest spokesperson for the Trump administration and its nastier instincts. And Lindsey increasingly is, I would say, inebriated to drunk when he's giving his great disquisitions on everything from the war in Iran to the treatment of immigrants in America or whatever. So this is a lying administration, a dissembling administration. Are they ever going to be caught out? That's my question. Are they ever going to be caught out? And as to Postol's pronouncements on the missiles and such, I have no doubt that they're probably reasonably accurate. But I'm seeing video. I'm having videos sent to me from above Tel Aviv and from on the street in Tel Aviv and from on the street in Haifa now, at the port in Haifa. I see things burning from ground to 200-300 feet up in the air. I see firemen and police and security personnel and civilians running around trying to fix things, trying to put things back in order. I see civilians lying in the street, wounded or dead. I can't tell from the videos. So I know that Haifa and Tel Aviv are being ripped apart by these missiles. And I see videos of the sky. And the sky shows me very little going up and a whole lot coming down. Whereas previous videos that I was getting from this same source showed me almost all the time missiles coming down and missiles going up, with the missiles going up 2 to 3 times as many as those coming down. I'm not seeing that hardly at all anymore. So that tells me that what you're saying and what Postol has said is true from my own eyes seeing it. These missiles that Iran is shooting now, with great circumspection, really, when you talk about how many they're sending in, to what targets they're sending them, and the frequency with which they're sending them, which tells me they know what they're doing in terms of limiting their strikes to only those targets that will be meaningful, and in husbanding their missiles because they know, as Donald Trump seems not to know, this is going to be an extremely long war. And it's causing enormous destruction wherever they go. And what I'm really seeing mostly is Israel, because I don't have visibility over other places. Like I've heard disaster stories about Bahrain, for example. We had one of the most expensive radars we own and in the region, completely demolished by a missile coming in from Iran. We were blinded by that. We couldn't see. These radars are hooked up. What many people don't realize, and I'm not sure I understand it completely because it's fairly complicated, but these missiles and radars and F-35s and other aircraft too, but the F-35s in particular are all coordinated. The F-35 has the capacity from its cockpit to coordinate a multitude of weapon systems and happenings on the battlefield. and to provide real-time and almost real-time intelligence for targeting and so forth. This missile in Bahrain, this radar in Bahrain was central to that, was key to that. It was also key to the Persian Gulf and protecting the Strait of Hormuz. It was destroyed. It was destroyed. And we're blind there now. I'm sure we'll rush something in or some things in because it's going to be hard to replace it. But that shows you how clever the Iranians are with regard to their targeting and how they don't essentially waste missiles. They're hitting things that are very important to us and very important to the conduct of this war from our side. While at the same time, we're committing war crime after war crime. Nima, dropping bombs on civilians to drop bombs on civilians is a war crime. Dropping bomb on an oil facility near Tehran that then spreads poison oiled air, if you will, all over Tehran is a war crime. Bombing a school was a war crime. Bombing the hospital was a war crime. War crimes par excellence. Now, someone said to me this morning, well, who's going to hold them accountable? Apparently no one. But we are putting negating everything that we've done in the previous 50 years with regard to international law and what constitutes a war crime. We will regret that. We will regret that. I'll make that statement right here and hold myself to it till I die. We will regret it. We're doing something that no one in the world probably ever thought a nation in our proximity of power and our situation would do, especially since we crafted it all. We built it all. We made sure that the pieces we were putting together from Geneva all the way up to roughly the end of H.W. Bush's administration was conducive to our own interests, sure, but it was conducive to a lot of global interests, particularly the international law part and the part that went along with freedom of the seas and that sort of thing. Gone. It's gone. Color it gone. It's in the past. I'm not sure we can regain it. What that means is, as I've said many times before, a Hobbesian world par excellence. It means that we no longer are there to attenuate that Hobbesianism somewhat. Sometimes we deepened it and made it more profound, but most of the time we were a force, as we used to say, a force for good in the world. We are no longer a force for good. We're not even neutral. We're a force for evil. Donald Trump has brought evil to the White House of the United States. Not to say that George W. Bush didn't bring it too with his torture program, but Donald Trump has amplified it majorly. We are now an evil state in the world in 60% of the world's eyes. That's a tremendous transformation in my lifetime and really in the last 20 years of my lifetime. And we're perfecting it right now in this war. I just watched a webinar with the Climate Security Working Group put on to discuss essentially three things: water, food, and energy, and how this conflict in the Levant, in Iran in particular, but other countries too, is impacting that. The impacts are just incredible. The impacts on everything from, think of this, for example, Ukraine was a tremendous impact when it got started, when the special military operation kicked off, because Ukraine and Russia are producers of a lot of the world's food, especially food that was going to Africa. So it was the producers getting hurt, and the follow-on effect for Africa, for example, was way higher prices for food, and in some cases they couldn't even get it. Now what we're looking at is a portion of the world that is a fundamental consumer, not a producer. And it's being disturbed, and we're taking out things like agriculture in terms of fertilizer, petroleum-based products that are necessary to farming and so forth. We're taking out all these things, or at least we look like we're going to take them all out and prohibit them from getting out the way they should. And I suspect that's a good look. And so now we're going to have an entire swath of the world that is not only the most impacted at the moment by climate change, and having drought and having water problems and heat problems and so forth, with an El Nino coming up in June or July, which will amplify these problems. I understand Tehran alone had some temperatures that were just unbearable. They're going to have double that this time around. And all of this is happening because of Donald Trump and Bibi Netanyahu. And the disaster that they were describing in these three areas, water, food, and energy, is going to impact not just the Levant, not just Saudi Arabia, not just the drier areas in that region, but also the world because of the spinoff effects of all of this. So all of this because of Donald Trump's ignorance, outright ignorance, and lying about what he's starting. He has no idea what he started. I wish he'd watched this webinar. He has no idea what he started, and he isn't going to end it anytime soon. Many people are going to die, including Americans. The casualty count's going to go up, and many people in the region are going to die. And Marco Rubio, being totally negligent in getting Americans out of the region like he should have, because he didn't want to warn Iran in the middle of diplomacy that we were going to attack them, that would have been a sure warning. They're trapped. They can't get out. And now we're trying to rustle up airplanes and airlines that will fly in and get them out and everything. And we're finding that most of them don't want to do it. So this is a tragedy, a true tragedy that Donald Trump is almost single-handedly, along with Bibi Netanyahu, responsible for. The president of the United States is responsible for this. War crimes galore, bombs that are doing nothing but killing civilians. I think Ted and others have been right about that too. This is incredible what the Iranians have done. Most of these missiles are so far underground and so well hidden and only have to expose themselves momentarily to be fired, and then it closes up again, that you're not going to get them. And we are not getting them. They're going to continue to come out. They're going to continue to punish the people that they land upon, most dramatically Israel.
Larry, you mentioned Saudi Arabia. Lindsey Graham had an interview on Fox News recently, just yesterday.
He was drunk.
He's begging, he's somehow threatening, not begging, threatening Saudi Arabia with consequences if the country doesn't join the fight against Iran.
Yeah, I want to know what brand of liquor he's drinking now, because it's deteriorated markedly.
Yeah. And does he have any sort of point militarily, Saudi Arabia? What are the capabilities, and how is that possible for the United States to open up Saudi Arabia, come into that sort of, front? And because they have to coordinate, it's some sort of coordination between the, those people who are attacking those. It's going to be so difficult to let Saudi Arabia get in.
Well, Saudi Arabia just doesn't have the wherewithal and the capacity to do anything but get their pilots shot down and killed, for example. We saw the Saudi capabilities versus Al-Ansar, the Houthis. We saw Saudi capability for years, and those Saudi capabilities were majorly augmented. The only thing we didn't do, and I'm not sure about this, Nima, don't think we did, was put pilots in their F-15s. Either the standard ones or the extended range ones we gave them. We gave them everything else. We gave them precision guided munitions in the form of JDAMs. Their iron bombs could be saddled with precision guided capability. We gave them the fuel. We gave them the intelligence on where the Houthis were and when. We allowed them to strike the port, the cranes in the port that disable the Yemeni from bringing any food stuffs in. Had to put a naval blockade out there to keep them from doing that again. So we did one or two positive things, but basically we were a partner in that war, and they lost. The UAE let little Sparta, they left because they knew they were losing. So they left, probably the only real soldiers, if you will, in the coalition. They left. So what is that going to add? What is any Gulf state? What Lindsey's looking for is just the imprimatur of the people we've been giving weapons to for years for billions and billions of dollars. He's just looking for their imprimatur in this war, and they're not giving it to him. And I don't blame them a bit. What I'd be doing if I were the Saudi royal family, if I were the Qataris, if I were the Bahrainis or anyone else, and I don't support these people at all. If they fell tomorrow morning, I'd be happy, I'd clap. But what I'd be doing if I were they is I would be looking for a new big daddy. I wouldn't be kowtowing to the United States of America at all anymore, because we, Nima, this is a reality. We will leave the Middle East when this concludes or before. We are going to be driven out of the Middle East by those people whom we said couldn't touch us with a farthing. Essentially, the Iranians. We're going to be driven out. But it's going to be a combination of everyone there determining that we're not dependable, we're deceitful, we're more harm than we are help, and going elsewhere. Now, I wish in that process, I dearly wish in that process that the people of Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, and elsewhere would overthrow their rulers and establish some sort of democracy. I don't care what it looks like even. I don't care if it looks like Iranian democracy, because Iranian democracy is more democracy than exists in Jerusalem or Tel Aviv. Frankly, it is. We won't admit that, but I will. So if they had some sort of government like that, that would be fine with me. I don't care if there are religious aspects to it. We're a damn theocracy now with Pete Hegseth and Donald Trump. So what's wrong with theocracy? Donald Trump's a theocrat of his own making. This is really game-changing, what we're doing right now. It is game-changing. Certainly in the Levant, in the Mediterranean, in the Middle East in general, probably in North Africa. It's game-changing for us. We are going to be compelled, essentially, to follow at least the prima facie evidence in our national security strategy and retrench and come home in many respects. And I suspect Ukraine is going to help us do the same thing with regard to Europe. So you're looking at, if I'm still alive in 5 years, check with me. I probably won't be, but check with me. We'll probably be home. En masse, we'll be home.
Larry, today I talked.
Mark Carney's got to worry about that, because then we got enough forces to take Canada.
Yeah.
We'll march on Canada. That'll be our next exploit. You think I'm jesting about that? When you see the results, you will see it probably. When you see the results around 2060 of the climate crisis and what it does to immigration in the world and what it does to peer powers along the northern tier, where it's going to be last in its damning effects, you won't laugh at that, because we'll be moving to Canada in order to survive.